Soccer Today is powered by Spin Media. From podcast to video production, visit spinmediadigitalsolutions.com and bring your content to the next level.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Mullins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night, and welcome to Soccer Today for Friday, July 29th, 2022. A long time since we talked last Monday, and today we're going to break down all the actions in the upcoming few days in Major League Soccer. We will also look at Jozy Altidore leaving Major League Soccer, probably for good, and of course more. We're going to start with some bad news and sad news to start, but first we'll invite you to join our journey to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Click that subscribe button and that notification bell to be made aware of whenever we upload a brand new episode. Before we talk about the Canadian Championship, before we talk about anything else, I want to start with a somber note, Duane, and if you permit, I'm going to start by talking about Jason Di Tullio. Today, Jason Di Tullio passed away at the very young age of 38. That's also the age I have. And Jason Di Tullio had a very aggressive form of brain cancer that he's been battling over the last couple of years. It's a form of cancer that is very, very tough to deal with. And Jason has been fighting really hard. He's a player who played for the Montreal Impact in the 2000s, or 2002, 2007. He had some knee injuries and a couple of injury problems, and has been a great coach, a great mentor in the soccer community. Even having a radio show with Joey Alfieri on TSN 690 for a couple of years. He was heavily involved with the Academy of the Montreal Impact. He was assistant manager with the Montreal Impact all the way to this year, also with CF Montreal with Fred Nancy up until 2021 when he was a bit too ill. And it's a very big loss in the soccer community here in Montreal. Thank you for all your grinta, Jason. The grinta that you're known for will be missed, but you've inspired so many people. The outpouring of messages across the soccer community in Montreal has been heartwarming today. And the team upstairs is gaining the greatest member they've ever had. They're gaining Grenta, and they'll never be missing any effort. Jason, this is for you. There's never any good way to move on. So, Duane, let's just continue. And why I don't want to make it all about me, but I'm going to for a second. The cancer that he has is a glioblastoma grade 4, and it's a same type of brain cancer one of my cousins had when I was a kid. And it's a sad morning here in Montreal.
Well, no, for sure. I mean, by happenstance, it's the day after a friend of mine who passed away from cancer's birthday. So, it's always a disease that still needs the attention. Other ones flare up and we talk about them, but it's, if you have some extra money to spare, send it to research. Yeah. Get some work so we can eradicate this disease and stop losing people at 38.
Yeah, it's my age, and it's way too young. And he'll be remembered. And La Grunta forever. The club Montreal Impact, CF Montreal, will do things tomorrow. I know on the broadcast tomorrow we'll have things too. So my condolences to everybody that had known Jason. A lot of people work with him that are close to that I work with, and everybody in the industry here in Montreal knows him. And my sympathies to everybody that it touches today. All right. We could talk about the Canadian Championship now, because Canada and Canada soccer was very important to Jason. So the Voyageurs Cup is his last moment, raising the Voyageurs Cup last year with Montreal. So the best segue to move on, we'll probably be talking about the Voyageurs Cup. I don't have any images or graphics or stats about the Voyageurs Cup. Vancouver raised the Voyageurs Cup earlier this week, beating Toronto FC and the Italians and the money in penalties. Duane, what was your thought on the Canadian Championship final?
I mean, I outlined it on Twitter. If you go back to my Twitter account, you can find my both initial responses at the time I live tweeted a lot of the game and also the day after. This was one of those cases where my sober second thoughts were very similar to my initial thoughts in the sense that you had to look at it from two different perspectives. I'm coming from a Toronto perspective here, of course. We'll get to Vancouver in a second. Um, I thought Toronto played very well at times in that game. Maybe they could have started it a little better, or they were a little bit loose or a little bit loose on the back end for the first 20 minutes or so. Thompson, in particular, was having a bit of a nightmare out there on the wing and was getting beat a little bit in the goal. I think that was his lost man of the track, and I think you can maybe lay some blame on Bono's head as well in terms of that missed goal. And we're going to talk about him in a minute when we talk about penalties, so we'll leave him alone for now. TFC did have a lot of ball in the second half. A wonderful goal from one of the Italians setting it up to, Luke McNaughton got the goal, but the Italian was all off that cross, off the inside of the foot, and beautiful, beautiful play. That, if you're a TFC fan, is what you hold on to. It's obviously disappointing to miss out on the CCL. That would have been something they really could have used for recruitment, and especially with a little bit of extra allocation, which might have helped as well. But, it wasn't to be on the night, which leads us to the talk of penalties. TFC beat Forge in the 2020 final, which was, kind of an exhibition game with a little bit of trophy at the end in penalties. A lower division side. That, to me, is relevant here because this means TFC has still not beaten an MLS team or better in a penalty shootout in its history. It is now 15 years old. That is a long time to not have done that.
Okay, so let's talk about the penalty, and we'll go a quick timeline of the penalty. If you're listening to us via podcast, this one's for you. If you're watching us via YouTube, I don't have any graphics, but you can follow the voice, my voice, on this timeline going something like this. Vancouver stepping up to the penalty spot. Ryan Gold puts it past the keeper. It's 1-0 Vancouver. Domenico Criscito steps on the penalty spot to tie it up 1-1. Mr. Expected Goal himself, or the lack thereof, Brian White, steps up to the spot and buries it 2-1 Vancouver. Jordan Peruzza, of course, the player everybody expect to go second, right? Goes in and ties it up 2-2. Moves on to Julian Gressel, the newest player of the Whitecaps, who was acquired earlier this week. Julian Gressel, a wingback player. I don't know how Vancouver is going to use him, but we'll see. He scores 3-2 Vancouver. Moving on to Jonathan Osorio, who misses it. 3-2 Vancouver. Andres Cubas steps on the penalty spot, and Andres scores 4-2. Federico Benedeschi scores 4-3, and then Tristan Blackman puts it past Bono, and Vancouver takes the Voyageurs Cup 5-3.
Yeah, look, I think what we could have done, we could have continued this conversation for another hour and a half, and it would have been someone from Vancouver steps up, scores, because Bono was never stopped. And look, there's numbers to back this up. Martin Bailey, our friend Martin Bailey, has put them out there. He's gone 0 for 12 in shootouts in finals and has never won one outside of the 0 for 12 in terms of stopping the ball. There's been a few shots that have missed in a goal. The only time in his career that a penalty has not gone in when he has been in the penalty is when it's missed the entire frame of goal. So this is not great. His overall penalty record in his career is 3 for 37 or 2 for 37 in terms of stopped penalties. That is a 0.05 save percentage on penalties. That is way below the average. That is not a trend. That is not a fluke anymore. It is a trend. And to me, this is not me. I'm not a goalie coach. And I don't care for Bono's game. I don't hate Bono. I don't care for his game. But to me, what I see when I watch him play is an athlete that really got away at his lower levels of using that athleticism to stop penalties. He doesn't read them. He throws himself athletically one way or the other. But the problem is when you're playing against professionals that know how to take a penalty, they wait and they see, and you open up and they put it in the goal every time. He didn't come close to stopping any of them. They're never going to win a penalty shootout without.
And there's a science to it too. If you can read muscle movement, you look at the heels of the goalkeeper, which heel moves first, the twitch and the foot can give it away too. I don't know if that's the case in Bono. I haven't studied his penalty moves, but that could be the case. But once again, we're going to continue and move on today's show. There's other things to talk about, but congratulations to Vancouver, Canadian champions, and they will be playing in the CONCACAF Champions League next year, Vancouver, and we will keep an eye on their form because, we'll see if they play well. Go ahead, Duane.
Yeah, I was just going to say we should say something about Vancouver's effort on the night. They played defensively compact very well, the way that they have to play to beat teams. I don't want to diminish the fact they won the game. I don't want to be bitter Torontonian here. They absolutely deserve to win it based on the overall play. They won the penalty shootout. That's how the rules are set up. Yes, it is a skill competition at the end of a drawn game, but in terms of this competition, they deserved it. You beat who's in front of you. It was 3 CanPL teams and a penalty shootout. Not the most illuminating trip to a final that you're ever going to get, but you take it when you get there. Like I'd say the same thing if Toronto had that draw, right?
True.
But they took advantage of it, and they have it in the past. So congratulations to the Whitecaps for that. Hopefully, you use your CCL spot wisely. They haven't in the past.
No, exactly. They've punted on the CCL a few times, but we'll see if they do use it properly this time around. Now, of course, we're going to talk about a Canadian subject a little bit. We're going to talk about Jozy Altidore. He's not Canadian, I know, but Jozy Altidore has been loaned out of MLS. He might never come back in Major League Soccer. I believe his Major League Soccer career is over. And maybe the greatest, I would say, the greatest effort of salesmanship by a club ever. New England, Duane, was able to find a spot for Jozy Altidore to play and a team to pay his salary outside of MLS. He's moving on up. He's going to Puebla. I have no idea if Puebla watched any MLS games with Jozy Altidore in the last year and a half or 18 months. Pretty sure they haven't, because they decided to sign and pay Jozy Altidore to be in Liga MX, destination Liga MX for Jozy Altidore, ending his time in Major League Soccer. Career stats in MLS overall, and that is, of course, in between a stint in Europe that he did go after his time with the New York Red Bull in the 2006, 7, and 8 season. 10 season overall in MLS. That's seasons including playoffs, 202 games, 148 starts, 84 goals, 28 assists for Jozy Altidore as a player in Major League Soccer. With his time out now, Duane, what do you make of Jozy Altidore's legacy in MLS, his legacy in Toronto? What is Jozy's history and story in Major League Soccer?
If you take away the last year and a half, you take those games played out of that, he's scored more than once every 2 games, right? Which is absolutely elite status in that league. So what I make of his time in MLS as a whole is he is an absolute superstar that played in this league for several years. I believe was the main reason TFC won the 2017 MLS Cup. He was the best player on the pitch in that playoff run, not Javinko. It was Jozy. Jozy scored the biggest goals in TFC history, the Columbus Eastern Final, and of course against Seattle to win MLS Cup. That is Jozy Altidore's legacy. Now, you know, I'm a rock fan. I like rock and roll music. One thing I don't like to see is when my favorite artists from when I was young go play the casino room.
Casino Rama or something?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not going to go watch that concert because I don't want to see that. So I'm kind of glad that I don't have to watch a shell of Jozy Altidore play in New England any longer. He was a shell of himself. And his body's broken down. He's a big body that got beat up a lot. I think it's time for Jozy to move on. Honestly, we'll see how he does in Mexico. God bless him. But, you know, I think his days of cooking up some good stuff for us guys is maybe over. And he might want to just go home and be a husband and a father to that beautiful family that he has.
Okay, so you don't want to go see your favorite band in the Casino Rama next door, but what about residency? Is this his residency period? Is this Elvis in Vegas, Britney in Vegas? Is this Celine? I don't know. This could be Jozy's residency in Puebla.
Yeah, maybe he's Celine Dioning it up. No, we'll see. Look, those numbers don't lie. As I said, we could have a legitimate conversation. We're not prepared for this today, but a fun conversation on a low time would be, where does Jozy rank in terms of all-time MLS players to play in Canada? You know, he's got to be on a top 5 list, I would say, just off the top of my head. The 2 guys in Montreal, they're probably Javinko, and it's Jozy right there.
So Piatti, Drogba, Javinko, and Jozy. You had a 5th one, but we can debate there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's a conversation you can maybe debate online, or you know, we can talk about it a different day. But yeah, he's in terms of TFC, to put it in that frame, I would rank him 2nd. I think he's the second best, greatest player. No, third, maybe second or third. It's either Bradley or him. Like that, it's there. But he's such a key component to those teams. That the scarf that I have that's off my screen because I don't want to get offend anyone because it says we won in everything. He's why they won in everything that year. Yeah. Him and Vasquez and Bradley and all that, of course. But Jozy, the guy that scores a goal, it's the most important role out there in a lot of ways. Goals win games.
It's true.
And he scored a lot of goals. But this move now doesn't mean a damn thing to MLS because he wasn't doing a damn thing in MLS. It just means New England now can move in someone else to probably try and take that over.
And what I'm really understanding here is that Liga MX team don't do their due diligence before they sign PLAers. And so that is also true. And so we'll take a short break just before we hear from our sponsor, Spin Media Digital Solutions. If you need help with your content creation to bring it to another level, graphic-wise, if you need consultancy for your podcast, how to bring it to another level, video production, and more, spinmediadigitalsolutions.com. We'll be right back after this short break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Kev Larmy here to bring you a little hello to one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth. Yes, you give me money, you become one of my favorite people here. So patreon.com/2solitudes. Shout out to our patrons here. This is the patrons from the shout out tier. $5 and over, you get a shout out here on our shout out tier. Pierre, Patrick, Martin, Jordan, thank you. Ian, Gonzalo, Glad, thank you. I'm so glad to see you all here. Dennis, Daniel, Sean, and let's not forget Let's Go Boys himself, Blue Collar Dan, watching us live on this episode on Twitter. And you can subscribe to our YouTube page. Everywhere you find your favorite YouTube page will be on YouTube. And click on that notification bell. Duane, it's time to look at a weekend of games in Major League Soccer. Busy weekend, 13 games this weekend, and it all starts tonight. We have a Friday night game, so if you are playing fantasy, it's time to pick your team. LAFC Seattle, 11 p.m. That's a fun late Friday night game.
Yeah, and if you're a wager person out there, I just checked the odds before, and Seattle's a 5-1 underdog in that game. So that's not bad value for Seattle Sounders against LA because you're going to know that they're going to step up and try and compete that game. That said, LA can win it. I'm just saying it's good value.
But Seattle rarely lose a few games in a row, so I would also back Seattle in this one because LAFC has the energy is going to come down now. The Bill thing is, well, they're going to sign everybody. I heard rumors that like 3 more players are coming to LAFC, so I don't know how. I have no idea how they have still space on the salary cap, but I guess they do. But, whatever.
It's that special rule MLS has is we need to get MLS Cup back to LA fund that they have.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So it used to be the Galaxy, now it's just LA, so they could give it to the LAFC.
Okay. Asterisks. We have no proof of any manipulation of MLS rules except our own.
Allegedly. Okay, Don, do not sue us, please. We don't want to be sued here.
Look, that's a damn good game. It's a fun way to start your night off or your week off for sure.
It is, absolutely. Let's look at the other games tonight in Major League Soccer as we go full screen. Minnesota-Portland tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. That's a great matchup. Chicago-Atlanta. Will Chicago continue to surprise some people in the Eastern Conference and trying to bridge that gap from where they are to where they want to be? We'll see. Atlanta needs wins too. Charlotte-Columbus. Can Columbus continue their climb up the table? Will Charlotte rediscover winning ways? Short answer is no, but go on Columbus. Philly-Houston. Interesting one. Philly, again, may be the best team in the entire league without big names, but still top. Still one of the best, and now that Tati is gone, NYCFC will find itself without a talisman, without the leading goal scorer in MLS. That is very surprising, and we can look at the Golden Boot race right now because Tati was first with 13 and Driussi, and now you're looking at a league that sees their best player leave, and the first team that plays them is Montreal. So that's a great game tomorrow. Montreal, NYCFC. Of course, you can watch it live at TVA Sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Montreal's in great position this year, and they got to take advantage of that. And there's a lot of good games we're in the heart of the season. There's a lot of good stuff here. Montreal playing NYCFC, that's an opportunity for the Impact. It's called the Impact to really make a mark and say that they're for real, because I still think that a lot of experts out there don't necessarily view them as being for real. And obviously you'll have the emotion of trying to play for their departed coach, and that's, you can't factor that in, but nonetheless it's something that'll be part of it as well. Look, yeah, it's an interesting matchup. Now look, New York they have not been firing on all cylinders of late either, because they haven't made the coaching change, haven't really found their way. And they now are going to be missing their top scorer. Lots of stuff here, lots of opportunity for Montreal to get a result.
And what's important here is he's not being replaced, right? And they're not necessarily getting anything for him right now. It's alone inside City Football Group, and we'll see what that means later on. I don't think we can judge that move now. We'll need to wait until the end of the season. Right now, NYCFC is second, but with a game in hand versus Philly. Montreal is fourth with 35 points. With a win, they keep pace with the top boys in the Eastern Conference, and that is a very positive sign for a Montreal team that is playing well, but we can't say they're firing on all cylinder as we go back to our schedule. Toronto, Duane, is on the road. The Italians and the Canadians and the Americans are traveling to New England to face the Jozy-less New England Revolution. If you are a Toronto fan making the trip to say bye to Jozy one more time, once again, that's too late. You missed him by just a couple days, as he's now heading to Puebla. But the Revolutions will continue their rejuvenation, literally, of their locker room. It's freeing up money and age over the last few weeks, as Adam Buksa is officially gone, Jozy Altidore is officially gone. We're seeing Bruce Arena maybe repair a couple mistakes he did in the past, but Toronto playing the Revs, that is a important game for Toronto to win if they want to climb back into the standings. It might seem like it's far away, but there's only 6 points between them and Cincinnati in the 7th spot in the playoffs, and in between them and the 7th spot, New England smack in the middle. If you want to make the playoffs, you need to beat New England tomorrow.
The Toronto fans never had to deal with the emotion of having to address a Jozy goal against them. So that's maybe something positive there. Look, in terms of a playoff spot, I'm not going to playoffs. You want to talk playoffs? Blah, 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 you know the clip. I'm not going to. Basically, I think Toronto needs to get at a minimum 27 of their 36 points remaining of it to make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen, but you got to get them 3 at a time. So that's just get wins and see what happens. But the thing I'm interested to see is what the Italians play in this, because this is not just 3 games in 8 days for guys that are basically just starting their season. They normally would be just starting their season in Europe, so they're right on that schedule, right? But it's also 2 games in less than a week on turf for players that have never really played on turf before. So that's going to be an interesting decision for Bob Bradley to make as well.
I wonder how Insigne's calves are today, calves, and the knees of Bernardeschi, because when you're not used to playing turf and you play turf and you travel and you have to be your legs cramp, it's not easy. And it's a cross-country trip. I wonder if they thought, it's an easy trip. We're going to Vancouver. Yeah, you think it's easy? It's not that close. It's like going across Europe, basically.
Well, exactly. They think about Toronto's schedule. They're playing 3 and 8. They played in Toronto, and then they fly in to play Vancouver midweek, and then all the way, the longest trip. Is it the longest trip in MLS? It's either the longest or the second longest trip in MLS.
Vancouver to
Boston.
Well, imagine Vancouver to Miami. Well, Fort Lauderdale. That's the biggest trip you could have, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a long one anyway. They probably stopped off in Toronto to throw their bags up and get a change of clothes. But I mean, that's a lot of flying. And look, again, if you're a wagerer out there, those stuffs matter. So that you might want to factor that into your decision on what to do with that game.
You might want to back New England in this one. Let's continue our look at the standings heading into this weekend. So, Nashville, Vancouver, straight off their big win in the Canadian Championship. Will the emotional down cost them a game? Can they compete against Nashville? Nashville at home, a difficult team to beat in the Eastern Conference, in the Western Conference. In MLS, Nashville is one of the best teams at home over the last few years in MLS. And when we look at Nashville's record this year at home, it's not as good as the other years, but they have only 2 defeats at home, 3-2-4. It's a team that does well at home and on the road, and they'll be difficult to beat for Nashville. Vancouver probably happy with the midweek glory, and they probably will have some rotation for this one. Miami, Cincinnati. This one matters more than we anticipate at the beginning of the season. Miami could be a playoff team with a win. They're back in a playoff hunt. Cincinnati is in the last playoff spot, but they're on a downward spiral. Luciano Acosta will be back, so lucky Luciano will be back for this one. The thing is will that be enough? Is Cincinnati the real Cincinnati now? Were they the real Cincinnati earlier this year? Those are great questions. We don't have answers yet, but over the last 10 games, they have been not as consistent and not as offensively good as the beginning. That's what their results would say. And heading into a second half or last third of the season that's going to be very contested, Cincinnati might be the one team that slips out of the playoff spots.
I mean, look, there's show me, don't tell me, right? When you're talking about Cincinnati, they've been the worst team in MLS history for the past 3 years, and that's not hyperbole. They have been. Statistically speaking, no other team has finished with less than 30 points 3 seasons in a row. It never happened before. They are the worst team in MLS history. So for them to even be in a playoff race right now is a testament to them finally starting to get stuff right. A big part of their surge was Brenner finally kind of putting things together and figuring the league out. Now, whether or not that's him shopping himself, we don't know. But regardless, and whether or not they should, which is a whole debate, like other podcasts are having that debate. My answer is yeah, they should, because I don't think he's going to long-term buy in there. I think they get money and they have to put that to the rebuild now.
Yeah,
but whether
they already paid a lot for him, right? It was $9 million a few years ago, and it was $9 million on the bench for a long time.
Yeah, so it's to me, you sell now because he's fairly caught right now. Look, that's an interesting game for sure. The East is not good. It has not been good at all year. Like, they look at those points per game. This is why TFC is still not really in it, but like not out of it either, because the East has been so bad. And this is an example of it. This game is really just one of these teams wants to grab up. The Nashville game, real quickly on that. Nashville's, to me, the sleeper of the whole league right now because they had so many road games to start the season, 10 in a row or something. So I'm not sure that their standing is necessarily really reflective of where they are in terms of their overall strength yet.
Yeah, and that will be, of course, very interesting to see if the trades and all the things that happened for those different teams that are, of course, battling for playoffs, that too does influence over the next few weeks. Kansas City struggling, worst team in the league. They have a points per game that is worse than one. Only 2 teams in the entire league have a points per game less than one. That is DC United at 0.9 and Kansas City at 0.87, which is very bad. And they are dead last. They're facing Austin, who's second in the Western Conference. It'll be a difficult game for Kansas City. Moving on to late tomorrow night, Dallas, LA Galaxy at 9 p.m. That's a fun one in the Western Conference. Dallas is 5th in the West, and LA is 7th. And that will probably dictate who wins, or at least who goes up, who goes down, who gets a chance to host some matches at home over the next playoff position. Here's your standings in the Western Conference. To me, Duane, Vancouver is still in it, but they need to keep pace and they need wins, and it's not going to be easy this weekend. We've talked about this, but teams like Dallas, teams like the LA Galaxy that are 5th and 7th respectively, they either need to continue to get points because it's so tight that a couple of results will see you slide all the way to maybe 9th or 10th, but a couple of results can see you jump all the way to 3rd.
Yeah, absolutely. We should take a moment to reflect on the fact that SKC lost to Sacramento Republic this week, and Sacramento Republic. Yeah.
Okay, so the Sacramento Republic could be the first non-MLS team to win the U.S. Open Cup since the 1999 Rochester Rhinos, held by none other than Montreal's own Mauro Biello in 1999. And this could be a fun trivia over the next few weeks if somebody asks you, hey, who was the last team who won the U.S. Open Cup without playing in MLS? And the answer is the Rochester Rhinos in 1999.
Pat Onstead was on that team as well, Canadian international. And
a lot of Canadians. There's like 4 or 5 Canadians that were on that team.
Yeah, and look, it's obviously not this century, so it's been a long, long time since that's happened. And at that point in time, if you want to look at Kansas City's history, they were winning MLS Cups around that time. So look, it's a long way down. But we had this Vermees conversation all season. You and I were one of the few places having that conversation because everyone views him as one of the untouchables in Major League Soccer. I don't know if you want to consider that untouchable anymore because this is not a great result. And they lost in penalties, but they still didn't win the game against the lower division side in regular time. So, yeah.
To me, you're untouchable until he gets fired. That's basically what it is. So you're never untouchable. You could just even though he had the backing of the owner a few weeks ago, to me that's a kiss of death. When the owner's like, I'm never gonna fire him, you know what that means. The players are like, really? Okay, hold my beer. I'm gonna lose more games, and we'll see if you change your tune, Mr. Owner.
Yeah, well, it could be he's not going to fire him, but it might be a hint for him to maybe make a decision to fire himself for one of his roles and continue in the other one, which, it's a way around this. That is the elegant solution to what's happening here. Maybe a new voice on the sidelines is what's needed, and let him focus, Peter Vermees focus on building that team. Because it's been 2013, they won that title. 2013 was a different era in Major League Soccer. That was a different type of team that won it. And although they've been good in the regular season, they haven't become close in the playoffs. I think after a certain amount of time, when you look at how they continue to lose playoff games, how they continue to always dip in the end of the year, and then you combine that with 2 of the last 3 seasons being below par, you got to start to ask questions. Yeah. That's all.
And speaking of the U.S. Open Cup final, the final is official at this point. It will be September 7th at 8 p.m. Orlando City hosting the final versus Sacramento Republic. Orlando could be destroying Sacramento's dream. Sacramento will not have an MLS team, but they can still win trophies unless the Lions decide to roar on September 7th.
Yeah, and look, if you're a neutral, there's not a neutral on earth that's not going to be cheering for Sacramento on that game. Come on, man. Like, there's a great story there. It's like stick it to MLS teams, the whole 9 yards. They got, if you're new to listening to us, I'll say it. They got screwed over by Major League Soccer for years.
They eliminated, as of now, they eliminated already 3 MLS teams to make it to the final. So they eliminated San Jose on May 25th, 2-0. That was a worthy victory. Then they won against the Galaxy in the quarterfinals, 2-1, like straight victories, not on penalties. And then they beat Kansas City on penalties, 5-4, 0-0 last Wednesday. So a worthy journey for Sacramento. They beat more MLS teams than Vancouver to make it to a final and to maybe win a trophy.
Vancouver did not beat an MLS team to it. They beat them in a penalty shootout, but they didn't actually defeat one in a game. That's...
Exactly.
Anyway.
Shot across the bow, Vancouver. Anyways, let's finish the weekend preview with the last game on the docket. DC United with Orlando. Orlando getting ready for September in the trophy, but now they'll be hosting, they're on the road Sunday against DC United, and Wayne Rooney apparently making his debut on the sideline. We'll see how that goes in DC. A lot of work needs to be done for DC United. They've lost a few games and they will be back on the pitch on Sunday to face Orlando. Do you think Wayne Rooney is going to have a good career as a manager in MLS?
I think there's evidence that Wayne Rooney might be an okay manager, actually, based on his time in England. Now, we'll see how committed he is to it over here. The fact that he said that he was coming over here to learn more, if you take that at face value, which I don't know if I do or not yet. I haven't decided yet whether I do. But if you do, that is a good sign that he's looking to learn, and that's a benefit. And look, I think that there is something to the big names over here, so long as they're supported with the assistants being able to do good work, because they have that they get that respect instantly from the players that they're managing because they are such global superstars. So yeah, we'll see whether he's going to have an immediate impact. That's unlikely. The talent is what it is, and they've been deficit on that this year. Quick thoughts on Orlando. We talked a lot about Sacramento and the importance of that. Obviously, Orlando going to a U.S. Open Cup final. That's going to be potentially their first trophy in MLS history. For them, they've won trophies at USL level, so obviously a big week for that club as well, and one that they weren't very good for a long time. So the fact that they were getting to this point, they're playing for a trophy is a testament to they managed to turn under a prayer.
And a big win against the Red Bulls, who had a good team on the field. It was 5-1 for Orlando against the Red Bulls midweek. So that's a big win for Orlando, as they will continue to move on now to the final of the U.S. Open Cup and continue to battle for a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference in Major League Soccer. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Once again, we want to say a bon voyage to Jason Di Tullio. Jason was a great part of the soccer community in Montreal. If you can donate to cancer research, if you can, there's a few big ones out there. If you go to CF Montreal and a couple other Twitter accounts. They've shared a couple of the foundations and stuff that the family and everybody involved would appreciate donations. So that is important. And thank you, Jason Lagrinta, forever. It's important, and it's a big part of the Montreal soccer community that is now departed, unfortunately. We'll be back Monday with a weekend review. And as always, until then, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kevin Laramie. We wish you a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.